So, welcome listeners to day 14 of the Undercover Police Inquiry live transcript, brought to you again from Police Spies Out of Lives. It's Thursday the 19th of November, it's 11:30 a.m. and we are, oh, don't want to hear that. Can you hear that coming back at me?
No.
Can't hear it.
No, because you see, they've heard all that. Never mind. See, that's what happens when you're working with amateurs. Sorry about that. So the live stream verbatim recording of today's evidence. Just to remind everybody why we're doing this. We're doing this because the public inquiry has repeatedly refused to live stream any audio or video from the inquiry for privacy and security reasons of the officers who are giving evidence. But that has had the net result of core participants like myself, I'm Alison, being excluded from any of the hearings. So this is really a way of us organising for ourselves and trying to get the inquiry to reflect on that decision and make some improvements for the next tranche, which is happening apparently next spring. We were delighted yesterday to have with us Maxine Peake, and today we are thrilled to welcome Siobhan McSweeney. Siobhan, hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm very delighted to be here. I was just wondering whether I should just to prove it is me. Hello.
Prove it. You can't see. No one can see you.
Oh, right. Okay.
You could you could do something that
I put my clothes back on then.
You put your habit on from the Derry Girls to show us a screenshot. So we were just saying beforehand that there's particular kind of support for you from our Belfast and Glasgow contingents. So hello to them who we know are listening.
Yes, indeed. Hello to them. Hello Belfast. Hello Glasgow.
So, and also we have, and Siobhan, today you are going to be taking on the role of HN345, otherwise known as Peter Fredericks. You happy about that?
I am delighted. I think I can give him a certain essence that isn't obviously apparent when you meet him.
Yeah.
He may look like a mixed heritage man in his 70s, but he sounds like a Cork woman in her 40s.
Fantastic. And if he changes the way he sounds during the evidence, then that's fine too, isn't it?
It is indeed.
And well, I don't know if we're allowed to say cross-examining, because the inquiry has been quite clear to those of us who are not legal experts that this is not an adversarial, these are not adversarial proceedings. These are exploratory and inquisitorial. So I don't know if cross-examination is the right term, but it's the one I'm going to use. So cross-examining HN345 Peter Fredericks is Rosa. Hello, Rosa.
Good morning.
You're okay? How are you this morning? And are you okay about doing this? Are you feeling nervous about reading a CFAC style running transcript?
I'm feeling enormously nervous, but very delighted to be doing it.
So we've had the women affected so far reading. So yesterday with Maxine, the barrister, Maxine was HN348, I think, Sandra, and the barrister was voiced by Lisa. And on Monday, myself and another one of the women voiced some of, I can't even remember who it was it Dick Epps, I think, on Monday, Dick Epps and somebody else. So hopefully this will be the last time we have to do this. Oh, this afternoon, I should add. So this afternoon, Peter Fredericks will not be a woman with a voice from Cork. So this afternoon we have another actor, a male actor this afternoon, and we'll keep listeners sort of on the edge of their seats to see who that might be. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to disclose that just yet. Siobhan, thank you again for doing this for us. What's your take on the inquiry? Have you followed it? You know, since how long have you kind of been aware of the issues that it's dealing with and the inquiry itself?
I had, I'd heard about this inquiry, obviously, when it hit the news. Yeah. I was depressingly unsurprised when I heard it, but then as I found out more details about it, as more details came to light, the level of deceit, the level of sort of emotional abuse. I mean, it's abuse, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no other way of looking at that. And everything that has come out subsequently, the language used is quite upsetting to me, to anyone really. And I think, I mean, I would have done this anyway, but I'm particularly outraged at the moment that even though this is a public inquiry, I don't understand the problems with getting access then as to why this has to happen. I understand, I understand legally why the priority has to be given to these liars, accused liars, but surely there is a better way of having a public, and more importantly, a publicly funded inquiry that doesn't involve this kind of farcical setup. I mean, this shouldn't be our responsibility, and more importantly, it shouldn't be your responsibility. You've gone through enough. You continue to be insulted and continue to be affected by all this, and this is just frankly another added indignity to the lack of priority given to women's safety.
Thank you for saying that, because I think one of the things that we feel, you know, about this bit of it, you know, the reading of the transcripts, is that, and also, for example, the people who are, you know, tweeting from the courtroom, and the people, you know, the court participants who are writing up daily reports, the amount of work that court participants are doing in order to bring the public attention to what is going on. It's like, it's ridiculous. We're supposed to be the participants. We're supposed to just be sort of sitting, listening, you know, digesting, maybe discussing with ourselves the significance of these findings so far. But actually, we're playing, you know, we're like, they're sort of
unpaid interns.
Really, really unpaid interns. Yeah.
There's something, it's not a neutral act either. It's not impartial. It doesn't feel like a neutral act because it involves more work emotionally and literally on one side than it does on the other. So how can it be neutral?
I agree.
The treatment of CPs has been quite awful as well. There's a catalogue of just the poor care to the traumas involved, just data breaches. Recent thing with myself where my integrity was called into question by the chair on a live stream for no legitimate reason, didn't go through barristers, and he since retracted it, but it's denied me to answer on live stream.
Yeah. I think, and the challenge, that because of the difficulties of the inquiry, you know, the way the inquiry operates, the problem that presents, I think, for us is that sometimes our focus is distracted from the fact that our anger really should be at the police.
Yes. And
so we end up kind of being in a bit of a tussle with the inquiry, who are supposed to be neutral. And like you say, it feels like, you know, sometimes they're not neutral.
It feels like they're doing the police's job for them some of the time, you know.
Having said that, I must say, and I know that they'll hear this, but Peter Skelton, who is the QC representing the Met, looked really tired the other day. He looked very tired.
Honey, we're all tired. Get some vitamin D in you and you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they called us the wearies. Everyone's looking a little bit weary.
You're not wrong.
Right, so I think any minute that screen is going to start moving.
Yeah, so, I'm quite nervous about this as well. You're going to be calling my sight reading into question.
It is, yeah, and also, like I told, there's two officers walking outside my door. Come to say hello out the window. Yeah, no, the sight reading is a challenge actually. And it moves quite fast. It's, yeah.
Sometimes as well, just be aware, Siobhan, it sticks. So it basically sticks and it's sitting there for 30 seconds or so, and then suddenly it just shoots up to the top of the screen. So you've got to kind of be on the ball.
Oh, well, great to know.
So I will be here. I'm going to mute myself as soon as it starts. I'm going to mute myself, but I'll be here if there's any technical difficulties, and if it does disappear or we drop the connection or something, we'll just chat. We'll chat.
Lovely. Thank you.
chatting. Okay. So I'm going to go quiet now because I think you're going to start any second.
Okay.
I do find it quite difficult to keep quiet, obviously, but it feels like we should have music, shouldn't we? We should have music at this point, but that would require, as I said yesterday, far too much technical know-how without messing up my screen.
Music.
You need some papers to shuffle.
Yeah. Yeah, a proper multimedia expert would be able to have all sorts of things going on now, but
Exactly. You could just pretend you're being filmed shuffling your papers and tidying your desk. Pretending to discuss earnestly to someone to your side.
because that first bit that comes up is the warning, isn't it, about not to send any, not to disclose anything, the 10-minute delay. That's the first bit.
Okay.
You get a bit of a warm-up text that Lindsey's going to read. It's an 11-minute delay, isn't it? This live transcript has an 11-minute delay, and then we have about a 40-second delay.
Is the delay? Sorry, I'm crashing things. Is the delay so that they can redact something if something has been accidentally said, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. How are you all doing? How are you holding up? This must be difficult.
Yeah, we're all different. Everyone's circumstances are so different, and I think I really do think that for me personally, the solidarity that there's been between really diverse groups of people has what's got us this far.
Yeah, good.
I think having to go over the details and the traumas has been re-traumatizing in itself for lots of people, and it's people, and myself included, have been reliving in real time. It's been quite awful at times. And you can the pain, the depth of pain across so many, the volume of people affected by these operations, the depth of the pain is palpable, and yeah.
I can't imagine it.
See, I'm now slightly worried that I just didn't press the play thing. Surely not. Surely not. What does that mean? No sign to confirm your age. Oh, no thanks. All live. Oh, come on. Okay.
It's all right. I was expecting this was going to be me, so I'm just so relieved at this end.
Seriously, my heart's going.
Okay, I think it's okay. I think it's the
okay.
live thing. Okay.
I had no sound this morning, so I was.
No, it's definitely not started yet.
It hasn't started yet. No.
No.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Oh, hello.
Where do we start from? Am I starting at the top? Or is this the chairman?
No, the chairman will start, so that's Lindsey.
Okay.
So thank you very much. We will resume in about 10 minutes with today's evidential hearing. Ms. Pearson, thank you very much, everyone.
That's all the old stuff.
Is that from yesterday?
You say they haven't started? No, that's from this morning. That was from the evidence that was read before the 11:15 break. Now there's a short break, which we've just finished. And there you go.
Okay.
Would you mind pressing got it just so that that blue square is off the screen? Thanks. Very good.
Okay, it looks like we've got another minute before it starts.
I feel like I should have run to the loo.
Too late now. No, you've got plenty of time. Mitting's got to talk for 3 minutes first about what you can or can't say, what you can or can't do during the hearing. So you've got loads of time.
Ah, there we go. I didn't actually need the loo. I just got some geranium essential oils, Chairman.
Miss Purser. Welcome back, everyone. I'll now hand over to the chairman to continue proceedings. Chairman? Chairman. Thank you. As at the beginning, the start of every evidential session, a recording made earlier is going to be played. If you're listening to it for the first time, please listen carefully. I'm conducting this inquiry under a statute, the Inquiries Act 2005, which gives me the power to make orders regulating the exacts of the inquiry, including its hearings. In the exercise of that power, I've made a number of orders which affect what you may and may not do in the hearing rooms and after you leave them. Breach of any of the orders is a serious matter and may have serious consequences for you. If I am satisfied that a person may have breached an order, I have the power to certify the matter to the High Court, which will investigate and deal with it as if it had been a contempt of that court. If satisfied that a breach has occurred and merits the imposition of a penalty, the High Court may impose a severe sanction on that person in breach, including a fine, imprisonment for up to 2 years, and sequestration of their assets. Evidence is going to be given live over screens in the hearing rooms. It is strictly prohibited to photograph or record what is shown on those screens, or to record what is said by a witness or anyone else in the hearing rooms. You may bring your mobile telephone into the hearing rooms, but you may not use it for any of those purposes. You may use it silently for any other purpose. In particular, you may transmit your account of what you've seen and heard in a hearing room to any other person, but only once at least 10 minutes have elapsed since the event which you are describing took place. This restriction has a purpose. In the course of the inquiry, I've made orders prohibiting the public disclosure of information, for example, about the identity of a person, for a variety of reasons. These orders must be upheld. It is inevitable that, whether by accident or design, information which I've ordered shall not be publicly disclosed will sometimes be disclosed in a hearing. If and when that happens, I will immediately suspend the hearing and make an order prohibiting further disclosure of the information outside the hearing rooms. The consequence will be that no further disclosure of that information may be made by mobile telephone or other portable electronic device from within the hearing room or by any means outside it. I'm sorry if you find this message alarming. It is not intended to be. Its purpose is simply to ensure that everyone knows the rules which must apply if I am to hear the evidence which I need to enable me to get to the truth about undercover policing. You, as members of the public, are entitled to hear the same public evidence as I will hear, and to reach your own conclusions about it. The inquiry team will do their best to ensure that you can. If you have any doubt about the terms of this message or what you may or may not do, you should not hesitate to ask one of them. And with my help, if necessary, they will provide you with the answer. HN345, could you be sworn or affirmed at your wish? Miss Perza. Good morning, HN345. Can you see and hear me?
I can, yes.
I can't see you at the moment. Oh, I can see you now. I understand you'd like to affirm.
Yes, please.
Witness affirmed. Miss Perza, thank you very much. Chairman, thank you. We can see that behind you there is someone sitting there, I think typing, and there to assist you with the technology if you need it. Is there anyone else in the room?
No.
Mr. Barr?
Thank you, sir. 345, you have helpfully provided the inquiry the witness statement dated the 20th of August 2019. Are you familiar with the contents of that witness statement?
Slightly.
Are the contents of the witness statement true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Can I start, please, by asking you about the time before you joined Special Branch when you were serving as an undercover police officer? In particular, did you receive any training for the role of undercover police officer?
No.
And so, does it follow that you learnt on the job or from fellow undercover police officers what was required of you?
On the job would be more accurate because I didn't really operate for the most part.
You have described providing some information about Stop the Tour whilst you were working as what I might call an ordinary undercover police officer, not meaning to demean that role at all, just to distinguish it from an SDS undercover police officer.
Fair enough.
Was that the result of you infiltrating the Stop the Tour campaign, or was it that information you just happened to pick up in the course of targeting somebody else?
It was information I picked up in the course of targeting operation.
And similarly, you tell us that you reported some information on the Black Power movement. Again, did you directly target the Black Power movement, or was the information that you picked up ancillary to your main tasking?
I don't recall being directed towards looking at the Black Power movement. It was just something that happened while I was doing other things.
I'm just going to pause there for a moment, 345, and ask the person sitting behind you who's helping with technical matters, would it be possible to turn up the volume for this witness very slightly, please? Thank you. Let's see if the shorthand writers can hear you now. When you joined Special Branch, was there any mention of the SDS at that stage?
The term used when I joined was SOS, Special Operations Squad. SDS is a term that I've encountered quite recently.
Okay, so I'll put that question again then. When you joined Special Branch, was there any mention of the Special Operations Squad?
No. But that's perhaps not such a helpful question, because Special Branch approached me because of the work I'd been doing, and it was people from there were all sorts of people there, and some of them were in the Special Operations Squad.
Yes, we now know that one of the people you say was there was the then head of SOS. We'll come back to that a little later. Now, once you had joined Special Branch, you tell us, first of all, that you joined the C Squad and that you joined the section of the C Squad that dealt with Trotskyists and anarchists.
Correct.
You tell us that you were sent to a demonstration about Bangladesh.
Yes.
My first question about that is, can you help us as to why, when you were in a section dealing with Trotskyists and anarchists, you came to be at a demonstration about Bangladesh?
I don't know. I was instructed to attend this demonstration. I did as I was told.
You give another example of being called back from your work to Whitehall, where there was a demonstration in Whitehall and Parliament Square, and where you witnessed a female police officer jumping from, if I've understood your evidence correctly, a burning vehicle. Is that correct?
I became aware of a vehicle that was on fire, and inside the vehicle there was a female officer who was in distress.
Can you help us? What was the demonstration about?
It was about the conflict between what was then East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Today it's Pakistan and Bangladesh. There were one country about 1,000 miles apart.
And what had caused the fire?
I don't know. I became aware of the fire several minutes after it had started. I just assumed someone was being unhelpful.
I see. But that was an assumption on your part.
Yes. I did not see who started the fire. I became aware of screaming from the loudspeakers on some motorcycles. I looked around and saw the fire. I saw other officers there as I was in plain clothes. I stood back because they didn't need me.
Was the demonstration that you witnessed being conducted in an orderly manner?
I don't know. What happened was I was on another bit of work. A message came through the radio asking me and all SB units to return to Scotland Yard. On my way back, I was diverted. I was asked to go to this place near the War Memorial, and more than that, I do not remember too well.
Can you remember whether you personally witnessed any disorderly conduct?
Nothing that struck me. There were people there behaving in the way they do, running around in all sorts of ways, but there was no violence, nothing unpleasant going on. It was just lots of activity, lots of energy, but I didn't notice anything to be worried about. Having said that, of course, we did have the fire.
Yes, and the fire, if I've understood your witness statement correctly, was in a police communications vehicle.
Yes.
I see. Coming back now to your general time on Special Branch, were you given any training on the definition of extremism?
No.
Were you given any training on the definition of subversion?
No.
Did you, from your work in Special Branch, form from your work in Special Branch an understanding of what was subversive?
I had probably my own private view on that term. What was subversive to one group could be helpful to another or positive to another. I think each case has to be taken on its own merits.
I see. I mean, really what I'm interested in is whether, if you were not given any formal training, whether there was a received understanding within Special Branch as to what constituted subversive behaviour.
I can't remember any such instruction or guidance.
Were you given any instruction on which groups, which Trotskyist and anarchist groups were of interest to Special Branch?
after all this time, I can't really remember. I found myself living out in an environment, and I would meet people from all sorts of groups, all sorts of backgrounds. I would do what I can to check them out and make the reports and make the reports as and when necessary.
When you went to activist meetings and demonstrations and so forth, were you given any briefings about their politics before you attended their events?
No.
We've got in the bundle some of your special branch reports and some of your SDS reports. In terms of the content, what was it you were expected to record? Was there any difference between special branch and the SOS?
I have no memory of there being any difference or any conflict there. I just felt that we had to go out there and come back with whatever information we could lay our hands on.
Were you given any instructions about what information would be of interest and of what information would not be of interest?
Again, I have no memory, but I imagine just something makes me believe that I would have been told what was of interest, and I don't recall of being told what was of no interest, if I can give that answer to the question.
Yes, because it's quite interesting. You tell us that one of the distinctions between your undercover work before you joined the SOS and the work you did in special branch and the SOS is that in non-SOS work, pre-special branch, I've read this wrongly, pre-special branch, you had been very selective from what you reported. You were looking for things that were out of the order, whereas you say in the SOS you were tended to report a great deal. Was that, did you also report a great deal in special branch?
I would report on encounters that took place as a consequence of earlier instructions. So I would be told to go somewhere and I would go there, do what was needed to be done and come back with whatever information was available.
I see. And where did you get the understanding that was required of you, what to report back whatever information was available?
I have no specific memory, no clear memory of that. A lot of the guidance we had was not in a classroom or anything. It was just a chat in an office, across a desk or whatever, talking with colleagues, that sort of thing.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask one of your special branch pre-SOS reports to be called up. Could we have, please, UCPI 00005817? Thank you. This is a report, 345, dated the 1st of April, 1971. It's about the International Marxist Group and the Vietnam Solidarity Campaign. If we could go over the page, please. UCPI many zeros 5817/2. And thank you very much. In the main text, it reads, Mr. Ninh expounded upon the achievements of the heroic North Vietnamese people in their struggle against American imperialism. This was followed by a discourse by Tariq Ali. He dealt at length with the history of the war in Indochina and urged the solidarity movement in this country to support the North Vietnamese. Ali stressed that if the North Vietnamese people were defeated, it would be a defeat for Marxism throughout the world. he concluded by asking all present to support the demonstration on Saturday, 24th of April 1971, the day of solidarity with the Indo-Chinese Revolution. Was Mr. Ali someone you can remember?
I remember the name very clearly, but no more. It's just one of those strange things.
Can you remember whether you were asked specifically to report on Mr. Ali?
No, I have no clear memory of that at all.
Can you recall whether you were giving any briefing about Mr. Ali at all?
I definitely was not.
Thank you. That can be taken down, please. You refer to your special branch work as the sort of work where you might be required to strike up a conversation with someone for the first time. When you were doing that, would you ever use a false name?
I had a false name, and when I was out and about, I used the name rather than my own name.
And presumably you were seeking information from at least some of the people you struck up conversation with?
Yes.
And is the distinction between doing that and what you did in the SOS simply that in the SOS you took your undercover persona to another level?
That would be fair, yes.
You described getting contact details for a woman who we're not going to name at the Bangladesh-related demonstration that you attended. Did that contact lead into your later work with the SOS? In relation to Operation Omega?
Yes.
And was there any connection between having that lead and being invited to join the SOS that you were aware of?
Yes, yes.
Can you, without naming names other than if it's necessary, Assistant Commander Penderud, could you explain the connection?
I was called to his office, and there was a letter on the desk. He looked down at the letter and said it was from Box. And he said not a lot of people who are doing your service will get one of these letters. It was from Box. It was quite complimentary, and there was a suggestion. I don't remember how much was in the letter and how much was said, but it was at that meeting that I was told I was moving to this special demonstration squad, and I'd be given an undercover name and all that.
I certainly don't want you to name anybody from Box. And by Box, we're talking about MI5, the security service, and I'll be careful about details. But can you tell us, was your commendation anything to do with the intelligence that you'd provided on the Bangladesh-related group?
I got the impression it was there because they were surprised I managed to make the contact and put myself in the position where I was now part of this group.
I see. Thank you. After the conversation with Assistant Commander Penderud, I'd like to know what happened next to get you into the SOS. Were you then introduced to SOS managers? No names, please.
Yes. What followed was not something you're trying to remember very sharply. I was told that I'd be going out. I would meet people who I'd be working with, including what you describe as managers. I was introduced to what you might describe as safe houses or secret offices where we would meet. And it just went from there. Things just happened, and I probably don't remember all of the detail.
I see. You recall at some stage 2 members of the SOS came to visit you, HN68 and HN326.
326.
Yes, it's page 10 of the internal pagination, paragraph 24 of your witness statement.
Oh, I'm looking at
the cipher list, sorry, yes.
I'm looking at the cipher list. And it's HN326?
Yes, 326 and 68. Neither name can be mentioned openly.
This. 32. Yes. They did.
Yes.
I can remember. I remember the incident, and I'm just reminding myself.
What I'd like to know is, can you remember when that meeting, when that visit occurred? Was it before or after you joined the SOS?
That's a difficult one to answer. It was, if it was after, it would have been in the very early days, but it quite easily could have been before, because I did find myself in touch with Special Branch. They would contact me because of the information I'd uncovered, but I don't have any clear memory of whether that was before or after the date of joining Special Branch.
Was it about the SOS, or was it about something else?
I've no memory. My assumption is they were there for a reason that had something to do with the job, but because we had encountered each other so many times, this sort of connection, of a friendly connection, existed. And it's quite possible that they came down to see me, and my home was the most convenient place for us to sit down and have a cup of tea and a chat about whatever was going on. But I do remember you remember them coming to my home. I remember seeing them there, but I can't remember why.
I see. Maybe I'm trying to press you too far, given we're talking about half a century ago, when there was anything else about that meeting and what took place that you can recall might help us?
I think the only thing I can really remember is a feeling that I had that you were all part of the same group, the Metropolitan Police. We were different departments, but essentially we were achieving, we were on the same team, on the same side. And so the sort of camaraderie developed, but I can't remember what we spoke of at this particular meeting.
In the SOS, you've told us in your witness statement that you received no formal training. I'd like to explore with you how you found out what was expected of you. Were your colleagues a source of information as to what you should be doing?
There were times, I couldn't give you a specific example, but there were times when the conversations would occur during which I would learn something from them. They were longer at the job than I am, so talking to them was quite interesting. It didn't happen a lot. We were all isolated.
Were these sorts of conversations that would take place at the SOS safe flat?
Yes.
And to what extent did your managers tell you what was expected of you and what you needed to do?
I think we were given very broad instructions, not detailed instructions. There was suggestions made what we needed to do, and I don't know, I think we were all on a bit of a learning curve.
And to what extent had you picked up what was required of you so far as reporting was concerned from your work in Special Branch?
I think the method of reporting would have been something that would have been, if you like, a hit and miss operation. If I wrote a report that was lack engine some way, someone would come to me and say, look, what we need to do with this is this, that or the other. But what we needed to do is this or that or the other. But writing of the reports was not central to my, for want of a better term.
I beg your pardon, I missed that.
It's basically the reports were something we would do, and if I made a mistake, someone would correct it. Very often, because I'm not a very good typist, my reports would be written by hand, and there was a typing team that would type up the reports on the official documents.
Operation Omega. Who tasked you to pursue infiltration of Operation Omega?
I don't have a memory of this conversation, but my assumption, if that is what you will accept, is Kim Prendergast. Having said that, he would have been aware that I had worked undercover before, and my whole point in joining the branch was to work undercover, not in the office. That was my...
Did you have discussions with SOS managers before deploying with that unit into Operation Omega?
I don't recall any significant conversations, no.
Can you recall whether you were given any specific instructions about what to try and find out in relation to Operation Omega?
No.
To what extent was what you did in the SOS in relation to Operation Omega simply an extension of what you've been doing in Special Branch?
I think, no. SOS, again, a different name. You put yourself there and you didn't go back anywhere near the office. We just lived away from anything to do with the Metropolitan Police.
You used the cover name Peter Fredericks, is that right?
Yes.
You tell us, your witness statement, that in fact this name was one that you had assumed before you joined the SOS whilst you were with Special Branch at the instruction of a sergeant, who we are not going to name, and that it also has something to do with Operation Omega, is that right?
I think it would be fair to say that I adopted that name because it was a name already in the system, and I needed to make a decision in a hurry. I was given that name and asked to use that name, but later on I kept that name.
I see. So a conscious decision to keep the name.
It was, yes, because at this stage, I thought changing my name at that stage, or whatever it is I was doing, was not a good idea. And I couldn't elaborate on that after all these years, but I just thought it was not a good idea. I'd already chosen one name. I thought I'd stick with it.
I see.
I'd been asked to use one name, and I thought, stick with it.
You describe in your witness statement that various groups were interested in the conflict in what was then East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, and that some had a political interest, whereas others had a humanitarian interest. Can you recall the groups that you're talking about?
Well, I know there were some people from a group called the Young Haganah. Their interest seemed to be humanitarian. It would be even fair to say that most of the people I encountered were interested in the well-being of those who were suffering. There was a program called Rebuild Houses or Huts or whatever it is for those who had been evicted in their homes and stuff like that. I didn't come across, if any, I have no memory of a significant conversation with anyone with simply a political motive. It did tend to be humanitarian.
Can you recall discussing the motives of the groups with your managers in the SOS?
No, not in any detail. Too long ago.
Were you steered by your SOS managers to or away from any of these groups?
Nope.
Now, you've described attending meetings at what I've understood to be a domestic dwelling in Camden, part of a group that supported Operation Omega. Was any formal permission required, permission required through SOS before you attended the private dwelling of a house in your undercover identity?
No formal, nothing formal, no. I was told where to go. I was told where the meetings would be. I was asked if I'd like to attend, and I said yes. I just turned up and things carried on as normal.
Does it remain the case that you can't remember the name of this specific group?
I don't remember the name Operation Omega. I don't remember any other names.
I see. Now, tell us in your witness statement, you tell us in your witness statement that one of the group's members' family had donated 6,500 to the Operation Omega cause.
This is what I was told, yes.
That was a great deal of money in those days, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Did the group appear to be well funded?
The way things worked, I never found myself thinking about the funding. It just felt fine. To answer your question, it felt adequately funded for what they were doing.
Do you know how well resourced the humanitarian effort was that they were engaged in?
They wanted to go there and build houses for people who had lost their homes because
I beg your pardon?
They lost their homes because of the war between the two factions.
It was a very serious humanitarian crisis, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
And did you get the impression that the humanitarian effort of the group that you had infiltrated matched the funding that you had been told that it had?
I didn't look into it that closely. We would need to know the value of properties and things in a country like Bangladesh compared then with the value of properties in London. It is not an exercise I went into at the time, but I just got the impression that they were spending a lot. They were planning to spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort helping the people who were being assaulted by an army.
You tell us that the group actually did go to East Pakistan to provide humanitarian relief.
I believe some of them did, yes.
Was that while you were interrupting the group?
I would say no. It was something that was being talked about and worked at when I was obliged to leave the group. But I was told later on that they did go there, but I don't know what they did.
And who were you told by?
I can't remember that. I can't remember who told me, but one of the people there actually had a baby while she was in custody. She'd been arrested while she was there.
And that was the sort of thing that would have made the news in those days?
I don't know. I can't. I'd like to be able to answer that, but it didn't seem to make the news. I found out not by what I read in the papers. I can't remember how I found out, but I just get the feeling that this was the information that came to me word of mouth.
I see. When they were planning the humanitarian relief effort, whilst you were infiltrating the group, did any question arise of you being invited to go to East Pakistan with them?
That didn't happen, no.
How big were their meetings?
Typically 10 to 12 people, sometimes fewer, and these were not meetings where there was a lot of, and these were not meetings. There was a lot of time that was spent discussing the problem. It was meetings that we would go to things like we'd get envelopes together, stuff the envelopes had to be distributed, they were distributed and their message. So it was more admin than anything else.
Were decisions made at these meetings?
If they were, they would have been made by outside of my presence.
I see. Did you, this may make the next question easy, were you involved in any decision making for that group?
No, no.
Did you attend demonstrations with the group?
I remember the first. If there had been another demonstration, there's something inside me that tells me I would have been there. Oh, yes, I did. I went to one in, I think it was Slough.
Yes.
And there would have been others, but a walk in a park on a Sunday sort of, you know, they were, I can't remember anything special about those demonstrations.
Well, you described the event in Slough as being attended by many thousands of people and being peaceful and unpoliced. Would a meeting of several thousand people that was unpoliced have been usual?
The short answer to the question, I suppose yes, but it's fair to say that if the police had been there, they were very, very discreet. They weren't upsetting anyone, they weren't getting in anyone's way, they were hardly noticeable. You know, it's a long time ago, I can't remember, but I got the impression it was the authorities and the demonstrators seemed to be working smoothly together.
I'm getting the impression that there was no public order concerns at all so far as this was concerned. Is that fair?
That sums it up beautifully, yes.
You've also mentioned Speaker's Corner. Did you attend Speaker's Corner in relation to matters concerning Operation Omega?
It's quite likely, but I don't have any specific memory of that.
You have also described some fly posting. Was that conducted by Operation Omega?
Yes.
And did you have prior knowledge that it was going to happen?
After all this time, I have no memory of that. I remember being there and I remember things, some things that happened on that night.
Can you recall how it came about?
No, I think I was just trying to be helpful. Someone had said I had a car and it would enable me to carry the glue and the paintbrushes and everything else and the adverts. So I was, if you like, I was in a useful position and I made myself available whenever I was needed.
And did you have time to discuss doing that with your managers in advance?
I don't have any such recollection, and my feeling is I didn't, because I thought fly posting, no one gets hurt, there's no need to get overexcited. My view, others will disagree perhaps.
Was there any formal requirement on the SOS to get prior permission to do something like that?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question. I don't know.
Well, let's test it another way. Was anyone upset with you for having done it?
No.
And you say in your witness statement that you wouldn't have reported something like fly posting. Why would that have been?
I was involved. Okay, certain things, I don't know. I think my feeling would be, okay, yeah, put some adverts up on a lamppost or something like that. The authorities have got more important things to do. This was huge. I took the view this was hugely peaceful. It was transmitting their message, their plea to the people to help and support them. They weren't hurting anyone. They weren't disturbing anyone. Okay, you could argue that we don't like to see these things posted on our lampposts, you know, and stuff like that. But I thought it was a relatively simple.
I understand that we're talking about something at the very, very bottom end of the scale of criminal offending.
Absolutely.
So if you didn't think it was significant enough to file a formal report, is it something that you would have told your managers that you had done when discussing your work with them?
I have no memory of that, but my guess would be that this would be part of the normal, relaxed conversation that we would have at these meetings, talk about that stuff.
Now, you talk also about assisting with leafleting and stuffing envelopes and so forth. Did you have access to the group's mailing list?
No.
if you'd been able to get access to the group's mailing list, do you think that would have been of interest to the SOS?
It would have been of interest to the SOS, I suspect, yes. And if I'd got it, if I managed to get access to it, I would have passed it along.
In addition to the campaigning activities that we've already discussed, did you get involved with any other activism with Action Bangladesh?
Apart from campaigning, you know, as I say, leafleting, delivering envelopes to people who deliver them further, no, I wouldn't. There was no.
How well did you get to know this group of 10 or 12 people that you were mixing with?
I had, if you like, I viewed the different people in different ways. There were others, there were people there with whom I got on with. We'd have cups of tea, we'd stuff envelopes, we'd go to demonstrations and whatever, but there were other people who were more involved in the hierarchy of this group, and my approach was to keep my hands clean, stay close to them and hope to be invited to the income stage. I made some progress now out in the street. I'm being invited. I made some progress now out in the street. I'm being invited to these meetings on a regular basis. And I felt if I behaved myself, the time would come and I'd be able to take the next step.
And to what extent did you participate in social activities with members of Operation Omega?
Very occasionally. There was a pub just down the road. We'd go there for half an hour or two on a summer's evening for a drink. Freudian slip there, I think. But outside of that, I have no memory of any social involvement, and not with all of them, just with some of them.
And would you pick up useful information, at least information that would have been regarded as useful by SOS from those conversations?
No, because I saw my role. I just felt I wasn't where I needed to be. I needed to move up further, and asking questions all the time draws unfavorable attention to the questions. That I felt it was my view to sit quiet, mix with people. If they trusted you enough, female, comfortable with you enough, they would say things they wouldn't want to say anyway.
I see. So this was, am I understanding you correctly, you were doing this as part and parcel of a long-term strategy to get more deeply involved with the group?
Absolutely, yes. That was.
Apart from the fly posting, did any of these people commit criminal offences whilst you were infiltrating them?
To my knowledge, no.
Can you recall what your manager's attitude was to the information you were reporting back on Operation Omega?
No.
Can you recall whether they had any views about Operation Omega?
No. No.
That they were happy, that they were aware of and happy with your strategy, which was to stay there with a view to ingratiating yourself more thoroughly with them.
That was my impression, yes.
Young Haganah, please, if we may, how were you introduced to young Haganah?
There were two females who attended a couple of 2 or 3 meetings, I can't remember how many, and they showed us a little about themselves. Now the term, the group they described as the young Haganah, but the people I was talking to were in their 50s, maybe early 60s. So I don't know enough about that group, but I did get the impression that they were not out to take unfair advantage of the situation, cause damage, trouble. They just wanted to help the people who were suffering, and that's the impression I had.
And what dealings did you have with this group?
I would meet a few of the members of the group whenever I visited this place in Camden Town. Outside of that, I didn't have any with them.
I beg your pardon?
I was going to say they seemed not to want to get more closely involved. That's the impression I had at the time, whether that was right or wrong.
And to what extent were they supporting Operation Omega?
Apart from attending the meetings, I have no knowledge of what was done. I got the impression that they just wanted to attend meetings, and they may have made some small donations, but I don't know. It's just a feeling that I have. I feel that they were okay.
And you went to their meetings. How big were they?
No, I didn't go to any meetings of Young Haganah. The members of the Young Haganah would come to the meetings of Operation Omega.
I see. Oh, forgive me. In that case, to what extent did you participate in their activities?
The Young Haganah, none at all.
I see. Did you socialize with them?
No.
You mentioned discussing them with Phil Saunders, whose name we can use. Apart from the observations that he made about the difference between their name and their actual ages, what did he make of them?
He didn't say anything, or nothing that I can remember.
Did he discuss with you your decision? I'm assuming it was your decision not to pursue any further infiltration of this group.
I hadn't made up my mind not to infiltrate further, but I hadn't any plan to infiltrate further. I was in that middle ground. If anything came up that gave me an opportunity, I would have taken that opportunity. If, in the absence of an opportunity, I didn't feel too worried.
Did he give you a steer one way or the other as to whether he wanted you to go into that group or not?
I have no memory of such a conversation with him, and my activity after that tells me that was highly unlikely.
And would I be right to think that what such information you did glean about Young Haganah you would have shared with Phil Saunders?
I didn't glean any information from Young Haganah other than I did some research away from the environment. I discovered some things about them, but this is information that's available to anyone who can use a library or in today's the web. But I think my interest in them was we had Operation Omega, Bangladesh and Pakistan, Young Haganah, Israel. It just widens the geography of the events that were going on, you know, and that is what I found interesting. Why should someone in Israel be interested in Bangladesh?
Two questions. Did you discuss what you did find out about Young Haganah with Phil Saunders?
No.
And second question, was there a connection between Young Haganah and Israel?
Young Haganah, the Haganah was a group of people who participated in the independence of Israel decades ago. That is my understanding of the situation. The Young Haganah, I don't know about them. I just say it's one of those socio-political organizations that comes into being for whatever reason, and if they're not operating now, I wouldn't be surprised.
You describe in your witness statement an event, your recollection it was a big house with marbled floors, where this were going to be some talks about members of parliament. By Price and John Stonehouse. If I remember rightly, you were diplomatically made aware from those, stayed away from those speakers, and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and East Pakistan, any Bangladesh leader was present, but you were not able to get close to him. Was that at the same event?
This event took place in a hotel opposite the Albert Memorial. I can't remember the name of the hotel now. And I went there and I wasn't able to go into the room where the meeting was taking place. I was steered away.
you've described in your statement that you weren't particularly interested in members of parliament, but would you have liked to get close to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman?
I would have liked that very much. And if I can clarify my position on the members of parliament, I felt that I was not able to be there, but if we had two members of our parliament there, somehow or other, any information that would be of interest to the nation would have been made available by these two members of parliament. I also had no reason to think there would be a problem.
I see. So why would you have been interested in being close to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman?
Am I allowed to answer that question with why not? If he's the head of a country that has been brutalized by another group, he's a useful person to get to know. If only, you know, sometimes you by accident comes across information that turns out to be vital. So it would be very, very useful to make my presence, make yourself available, keep your eyes and ears open, and just pass on any information that the authorities would know how to use. There are people far better to understand so much more than I do about international affairs, and that's all.
Would it be fair to describe this as part of a way of operating that was to cast a wide net?
Yes.
Hoover up any information you thought might be of interest?
For two reasons. One, hoover up information that might be of interest. Two, I felt I would not be regarded as someone about whom no one knew anything. If someone had said, look, do you know Peter Fredericks? They'd say, yeah, he's with these people, he's those people. And if over time I developed a relationship, it would secure my position. I would be less likely to be discovered.
I understand. Then, of course, you didn't get close to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. You were being diplomatically steered away, you felt?
Yes.
Did you sense, therefore, that the group had not fully accepted you, at least at this stage?
There were a number of things, couple of things happened, and I became aware that something was not quite right, and I found out later what it was, but there already was, I was steered away by someone, the person whose family contributed £6,500, and I knew something was wrong.
I see.
I knew something.
Did that have anything to do with you ceasing to report on Operation Omega and moving to report on Black Power?
I cannot answer that question positively, yes, because my feeling out there was I would be involved with anything that was around, partly to get the information that we needed, but partly it gives me more, I think the term with antiques is provenance. You have a story behind what you're looking at. If I can be seen to be someone who knows a lot of people, different organizations, perhaps I would gain more trust.
And the information that you were interested in getting, could you describe your understanding of that?
I was aware that this is an environment where you've got layer upon layer upon layer, and I'm not fully aware of everything that's important. So I would hand over whatever information I received, and others would decide whether or not it was relevant to what was going on at the time.
Now, you tell us in your witness statement that there was a woman who you were convinced had a hidden agenda and that you went to a few restaurants with her.
Yes.
Can you first of all help us with which group she was associated with?
Operation Omega.
What was it that made you think she had a hidden agenda?
Very difficult to answer this one. I couldn't relax, or in normal circumstances, I could say, look, something was wrong about you. More than that, you seemed, I don't know, it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. She seemed to live differently from a number of the people. I did meet a few of her friends. I imagine she was sort of in her early to mid 30s. Most of her friends seemed to be 20, 30 years older than she was. I did meet a few of them, and it was just something about the conversations we had which somehow amounted to absolutely nothing. I've met many people, and you meet people and over time you get to know a little about them, their family and all the rest of it. Nothing like that happened. I did find out where she worked. I don't have the exact address, but somewhere in West End, the West End, and she had something to do with something or other, I can't remember. It didn't fit. Can I just put it that way? There was just something wrong. I can't explain it.
And why was it that you wanted to find out more?
It was just interesting to know what else. It's just interesting to know who else would be interested in Operation Omega and for what reason. Am I allowed to say which country she's from?
Yes.
United States.
I see.
And oh no, carry on.
No, sorry, no, you carry on.
No, I was just saying, I thought it was just something wrong. I didn't expect to see someone. It was just something about her, you know, just something there. I could be totally wrong. All I'm saying is it attracted my attention, and not everything you chase after is worth the effort at the end of the day.
And who asked who out to a restaurant?
When I say we went to a restaurant, it would be somewhere you would eat. You pop in for a coffee shop or a restaurant. It wasn't an appointment or anything like that. You know, we met. We would have gone to pubs, had a few drinks in pubs. You know, go eat somewhere. Very often at the end of a meeting, people with cars would help those without the cars, and at the time I was without a car, and I would get a lift. You know, that sort of thing.
And were these meetings always with other people, or always just the two of you, or a mixture of both?
The majority of the meetings, I don't know, 98% of them would have been at this particular flat where Operation Omega was doing the stuff. We'd meet people and talk, go down to the pub together, that would happen. But I did spend time alone. We would have... if we did, it's not something I sort of remember. I suspect we would have done, but I don't know.
I beg your pardon?
I suspect we would have spent some time in a restaurant or a pub on our own with nobody else, but I have no particular memory.
And what tactics did you use to try and get to the bottom of what you wanted to find out about this woman?
I was very careful here because something told me, I don't know what it was, that woman knew what she was doing. And I thought, if I open my mouth and say the wrong thing, she's going to put two and two together. So I was very, very careful. I was there to do the listening. I do the listening. I do little talking as possible.
And were you befriending her?
Not really, no. We enjoyed each other's company. We laughed together and all the rest of it, but I didn't meet her outside the environment.
Were you befriending her to obtain information from her, is what I'm asking.
I was hoping to obtain information from her, yes.
And was she older than you, or about the same age?
No, older. I was in sort of 20s, early 20s, and she would have been, I got the impression, maybe 10 years older than me.
And did you try and strike up any sort of romantic relationship with her?
No.
Do you think that anything you did might have been perceived by her as romantic?
No. Well, I'd rather not comment, but no is the answer.
And did you keep your manager in the loop about this mysterious woman and what you were doing?
I would have mentioned her in 1 or 2 reports, certainly, but she was, I didn't know enough about her for there to be any meaningful exchange of information. I would have mentioned her in the report, certainly, but I didn't have anything to say, anything with her.
You've described going to the house of a woman after you left the SDS because you had heard about a suicide.
Oh, yes.
Is there any connection between that event and the American woman you've just been speaking about?
With that visit, no. That visit was an impromptu thing, just something I did.
Sticking with that later visit, how did you know where to go?
I was in Camden Town and I had parked the car a short walk from this particular house that I'd visited many times working on undercover. And this might give you an idea when we were talking about friendship. I thought, drop in, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, say hello. I knocked on the door a couple of times. There was no answer. But then the tenant upstairs noticed I was there and invited me up and we chatted.
I see. So when you say you knocked on the door to say hello, presumably at that stage you weren't aware that there'd been a fatality, or am I misunderstanding the position?
I had no idea there had been a fatality.
And so you had got on well enough with this woman that you were curious to catch up, curious enough to try to catch up with her.
I think if I can put that, I was on, I don't know what business, what I was doing in Camden Town at the time, but I parked the car right close to this car. And while I was there, it was on the spur of the moment. I thought, while I'm here, why not say hello? No big deal. And I went to say hello, but there was no answer.
Would that have been with a view to reporting back on the meeting, or was that simply a legacy of the relationship you had formed with this person whilst undercover?
I had been out of the job for quite a while then, and this was just one of those things, nothing to do with the job. I didn't report it. I didn't say anything because as far as I was concerned, I was no longer involved and no one was interested.
And how close a relationship had you had with this woman when you were undercover?
We would meet at our house because mainly the meetings would take place there. I had been with her on a couple of occasions. We'd go to the local pub and have a drink and stuff like that. We'd chat about all sorts of things, but outside of that, no.
Had there been any sort of spark between you?
No.
Was there anything romantic about your relationship with this woman?
Romantic. I can tell you, I was struck by, if I can use the term Oxbridge, there was something about her. She was hugely well educated, very high IQ and all the rest of it. And I found that interesting. There was no romantic involvement. I just found her interesting as a human being.
Had you been given any guidance or instruction by the SOS about whether or not you should contact someone you'd mixed with undercover after deployment had ended?
No.
Now, just before we move on, can I ask you this? The answers you've given about Operation Omega suggest that it was a humanitarian organisation, that it wasn't committing any crime more serious than fly posting, that they were protesting in an orderly, peaceful way. Many might wonder why the SOS was infiltrating such an organisation and what it was expecting to gain from that. Can you help us with that, please?
It is a question that went through my mind at the time. When I was asked to join Operation Omega, I thought maybe there was something going on, so that's going to be hugely interesting. As time went by, I thought no. But I am aware that on the international stage, there's stuff going on about which I knew nothing. So I just followed the rules and carried on.
Did you raise these doubts with Phil Saunders or any other managers while you were serving in the SOS?
No.
Can we move now to Black Power? First of all, perhaps you could help us with your understanding of what the Black Power movement was at the time that you infiltrated it.
Very broadly, I think the Black Power movement was a consequence of a perceived mistreatment of Black people. And as with all things, politics gets in the way, and there are hidden agendas that are not suddenly very well hidden. It's a huge subject.
Was it a single group or was it an umbrella for a number of groups?
I was involved with, I think it was, when the question was put to me for the very first time, I would say that we participated with other groups, both here and in the States.
And when you say participated with other groups, it may have had links with other groups, but it was itself a homogenous group itself.
That's a very difficult one. I think perhaps a mix of both, but we're going back so far. It's very, very difficult to get back the feelings that I had. I did get the feeling that I did meet a couple of people from the States, and we seemed to be getting on quite well. I was of the opinion that it was a good chance I'd be invited to go and join them in the States and meet some of the people there. I can't answer your question. It's too technical, too involved.
I understand. How did it come about that you infiltrated Black Power while serving with the SOS?
Oh, we're going back a while. I think it was an accident. One of the things we were required to do was go to Speaker's Corner and just report on what we saw or heard. I got involved with someone, we hit it off, and we moved on from there. He was involved with Black Power, and I used to go to his meetings, and, you know, he introduced me to these Americans and various others.
Was there any connection between your pre-special branch undercover work and the reporting of information in relation to Black Power that you had done then, and your infiltration of Black Power for the SOS?
The only connection I had with Black Power was the Stop the Tour.
I beg your pardon?
The Stop the Tour campaign.
Yes.
I became involved with that very, very briefly, but to no significant degree. Anything I did find out, I did pass on to the branch.
Can you remember whether you were tasked by your managers or steered towards Black Power?
No, I wasn't steered towards Black Power, no.
Were you given any briefings about Black Power?
None that I recall, no.
Why did you think Black Power would be of interest to the SOS?
I think I was just of the opinion that any group is of interest. Where they would be of interest. There was stuff in the press at the time about some uncertainty, trouble between, you know, the racists and there were problems, and I assumed that somewhere along the line there were people looking at this seriously, trying to reduce the impact of the problem, trying to solve the problem. But it was no more than that. I was on the periphery. I was by no means at the heart of this, although it does turn out I met some pretty interesting people. But again, my plan was, if you like, a long-term plan, I'm firmly of the belief that in this environment, you've got to give it a lot of time. I may be wrong, of course.
What was your manager's reaction to infiltrating Black Power?
I have no memory of anything being said, so I assume it was just accepted. You know, I took the view, you're out there, find what you can and bring it back. We'll guide you if there's any specific of any urgency. But I just went there and
did you get any sense that they were pleased that you'd infiltrated this group?
Not pleased, no. Displeased. Not pleased, not displeased. The only occasion where you could use the word pleased or pleasure was when I was shown the letter from Box, as we discussed earlier. That's the only time I can say that anyone was sort of pleased, but no.
Did anyone ever say anything about you about whether or not Black Power was an organisation that the SOS positively wanted to target?
No.
Were you ever told that previous attempts had been made or anything like that?
No.
You described, and you already have described going to Speaker's Corner. You also describe in your statement having tea and coffee in the Marble Arch area, going to meetings in the Notting Hill and Pentonville Road, Portobello Road, sorry, and going to pubs there too, and also going to private house where there were meetings. As with Operation Omega, did you go through any prior formalities before attending meetings at a private house?
No. If I did, I wouldn't have been aware that it was going on. Everything was done socially and we chatted.
Were there any other activities that you pursued with Black Power?
No.
Did you go to demonstrations?
If I did, I can't remember after all this time.
How well did you get to know the members of this group?
To say hugely well would be wrong. I got on pretty well with some of them. We, as I say, we go out to these restaurants and seem to be getting on quite well with the Americans who we played pool and things like that. We met socially and there were times we'd spend hours together and not discuss politics or anything like that. It was just a social interaction. And my feeling was that this was a good way to proceed.
Was there a link between Black Power and the Black Defence Committee so far as you can remember?
I can't remember that.
There are 2 reports in the bundle about the Black Defence Committee which bear your name. Did you attend the 2 events which are covered by those reports?
Do I? If I can see the report, I might help jog my memory, but I have no. It's possible you meet people and you don't really remember the title that they use because there's such a lot going on.
Well, let's call them up then. We can do that. The first one is UCPI many zeros 26455. You'll see 345 that this report is dated 16th of September 1971. The subject is the Black Defence Committee. It says the following information has been received from a reliable source. On Friday, the 10th of September 1971, at the George IV Public House on Pentonville Road, N1, a meeting was held by the Black Defence Committee. The meeting, which was attended by 2012 perpetrators, began at 8 p.m. and ended at 10 p.m. The only speaker was Charles Brecker, a coloured South African student. Brecker recounted his experiences under apartheid. He was bitterly opposed to the South African regime. and called for solidarity in the fight against that hideous system. If the workers of the world, both black and white, united, then apartheid might surely tumble, for that system was only propped up by the capitalist interests of the Western world. Does that ring any bells?
I don't remember, but I'm not uncomfortable with this. This is, what I'm looking at here reminds me of the way I felt and what people were talking about in those days.
It was a meeting of 12 people, correction from the 2012. Did you ever find yourself in small meetings making decisions with either Black Power or the Black Defence Committee?
No.
At the bottom of paragraph 2, which I've just read out, you've used the word coloured to describe the South African student who was the speaker. And why did you use that word?
I don't know. This is a humanly nuanced environment. I think coloured was the general term at the time, acceptable. I don't know.
Can we take that document down, please? And can we now have up UCPI many zeros 26456? This is a report dated the 30th of September, 1971. Against the subject, the subject is the Black Defence Committee. It reads, the following information has been received from a reliable source. A meeting of the Black Defence Committee was held on the 24th of the 9th, 71, at the George IV Public House, Pentonville Road, N1. The object of the meeting, which commenced at 8 p.m, was to inform people of the difficulties confronting Black people in a capitalist society. There were between people present. The speaker was Michael Seifert, a solicitor and member of the Angela Davis Defence Committee, who spoke about Davies' struggle. He outlined privacy, and added that Angela Davis Committee had 26 members, 6 of whom, himself included, were all members of the Communist Party of Great Britain. I can stop there. Was membership of the Communist Party of Great Britain in the context of being a member of the Angela Davis Committee something which you thought was of interest to the SOS?
At the time. Today, I'm sorry, I just don't remember.
Can you recall any managerial reaction to reporting?
No.
The Angela Davis Defence Committee refers to a justice campaign in relation to an American woman, doesn't it?
I don't remember this. I have no memory of this, but is there something I can read here, perhaps?
No, that's not on the face of the document. Can you remember anything at all about the Angela Defence Committee?
No.
Can you remember whether you were given any guidance about whether or not it was acceptable to report on justice campaigns, and if so, in what circumstances?
Definitely not.
Could we take that down, please? Moving on to a lecture you've given evidence about in your witness statement, a Black Power lecture on violent protest at which you've described the speaker saying something to the effect at some point that he thought there was a member of MI5 in the audience. Was the speaker for or against violent protest?
After all this time, I don't really remember that bit. Sorry, what can I say? That the meeting, I know there was uses a very disturbed for a few seconds, very, very worried, but when that passed, I don't recall feeling stressed either before the introduction or after. I seem to recall feeling that not a lot of information came out of that meeting, which was a bit disappointing, but not surprising, because I got the feeling that they were doing what they were hoping to plan to do was perhaps contrary to the law.
You've described in your witness statement thinking you were going to be kicked to death. Is that right?
That's one way of expressing the feeling that just takes over you when you know you're outnumbered and you're in deep difficulties.
What made you worry about these people?
After all these years, it's very, very difficult to describe that. But when he went up to the lectern, and in order, I've discovered it's my opinion that it was just a tactic he used to draw attention to himself and, wake up his audience. But he pointed directly at me and accused me, and it sounded as if he was accusing me. But then it turned out he was only joking, and everyone knew he was joking. They were all laughing, but for a brief moment, it was a strange experience. I'd been to it a few times.
Had you experienced any of the people you were being violent before that occasion?
No.
Had you heard any of the people you were with expressing violent thoughts or intentions?
This is something I know I have, but I couldn't give you day, date, time, or place, and I don't know if it happened here. But I was aware I was involved with people who had access to and were prepared to use violence as and when necessary, but I don't remember the details anymore.
Thank you. Sir, would that be a convenient moment to pause for lunch? Sir, I think you're still on mute.
Sorry, I thought I'd demuted myself, but I now have. We're slightly past 1 o'clock. The shorthand writer I know needs a full hour. We'll start again at 5 past. Miss Purser. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll now break for lunch. We'll resume at 2:05, and you may now move into your breakout rooms. Thank you.
And we're done. Well done. That was marvellous. We're still live, though, for a few more seconds.
Fine. It was so hard not to make my own questions, because some of that was outrageous. What on earth were you doing spying on people, fly posting and trying to raise a humanitarian effort? What on... Oh, God. Oh.
What was your take, Siobhan? Was it hard to read, apart from anything else?
It was hard to read. It would only be opinion, obviously, when I say this, but it's interesting reading. It's hard to get the connecting thoughts in his head, the sort of duplicity of it, when he can see that people were fly posting and raising money for humanitarian. He can see this. He has investigated and seen that it is for humanitarian causes, and still maintain his deceit. It just, it's hard to sort of figure out the psychology behind that.
Well, he said, didn't he? He followed the rules and carried on, which is very similar to something that HN345 Sandra said yesterday. She said something like, it was my job and I got on with it, something like that.
Yeah. I know. At what point does obedience just become robotic? I found it interesting, just, as a woman who dates, listening to not being able to answer whether somebody thought there was a spark between them. Like, when he said, I'm not able to answer that in the positive, whatever it was specifically, I was like, right.
Yeah. there's a lot to go back on, and I wish we had time. We don't, but that whole. What about the woman with the American woman? Was he suggesting she was like a CIA spy or something? Is that what the implication for that?
That was
my understanding.
Yeah,
I was going to say
the
point about following orders and just doing their job is very chilling when you look at it in context of the Chiz Bill, and the fact that it allows for the authorization of murder, rape, torture.
Yeah.
Yeah, much to discuss. Well, thank you so much, Siobhan. We're going to stop live streaming now, and we will be back at 2:05 with a different actor. So a massive thank you, Siobhan, and to Rosa. We've had lots of messages saying how brilliant you've both been, and of course to Lindsey as well as our chair. So please all tune in again at 2:05 for the rest of HN345's evidence. We'll see you back then.
In the background there.
Yeah, that's the cops. They're coming.